Would you like to learn a leadership communication secret that will help you stand out as a woman in leadership, or perhaps you are a man in leadership? I'm going to share with you what I learned, the one big communication lesson that I took from the Aspire Tour event that took place today, January the 13th, 2026, that will help you as a leader. And you absolutely want to watch this video until the end, because this secret strategy I'm sharing with you is something that will help elevate how you communicate. Now, I want to ask one, if you have ever been in a situation where you've had to communicate with your teams as a leader, maybe you've had to communicate in front of a boardroom. This is the best place for you if you have ever been in any of those situations. So let me know in the comments below. I'm looking forward to hearing your insight and really excited to share with you what I learned today. Now, I appreciate your patience. I did not go live this morning, as I mentioned earlier, because I was actually at the Aspire event. And the event was great. For those of you who may be wanting to know, it is definitely an event that is more catered to your business owners, your entrepreneurs, the individuals that are really trying to make big changes in their world, in their community, in their lives to improve other people. And there were several notable communicators that were there, or speakers that were there at the event. Kevin O'Leary was there, Jordan Belfort was there, Gary Vaynerchuk was there, Renee Rodriguez was present, and David Meltzer was present as well, Andrew Cottle, and then also Eddie was present as well. And those are the founders of the event. But I want to share with you just a really big communication lesson that you as a leader can take home with you today, that you may not have been present for the event in Fort Lauderdale, but I want to make sure you get a good insight in terms of what you can do as a leader to help you elevate in terms of how you're communicating. Now, one of the things that came up from the event that I noticed, and I literally rushed here to come and tell you all. I rushed so much, I still have my paraphernalia here, my credentials here. I rushed to get here to tell you all this because we think of public speaking as something that is only for your big events and your big conferences and etc. And I want to share with you, public speaking is not only for that. Public speaking is a skill you can learn to master that will help you communicate better, whether you are a woman in leadership or a man in leadership, or you're trying to learn more about being a leader. The one big communication secret that I took from the Aspire event today that will absolutely help you stand out, whether you are a woman in leadership in my direct target audience or a man in leadership, and I appreciate the heart emojis, leaders and friends, is that your audience, your teams, they need to feel you. And what do I mean specifically by feel you? What I want to encourage you all to think about, and I want to say hello to Steve Murray, P2E. Hello, Steve. How are you doing today? What I want to say specifically is that if you want to rally your teams, if you want to motivate your teams and get them to be those individuals that you need to take care of whatever the project is, or you're trying to motivate other people, your audience needs to feel you. And it's not only in a public speaking standpoint, but this is just generally speaking. So you may be wondering, well, how can I make my audience feel me as a leader when I'm communicating with them? The best way for you to do that is to make sure that you come to that meeting, to that engagement, that public speaking event, or any interactions you have with a lot of energy. Now, before I go into how can you set this up for yourself, let me see what's going on in the chat. Steve Murray, P2E, says, OMG, you are so pretty. Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So how can you make your audience feel you when you're speaking? Your energy has to be way up there. As I mentioned at the very beginning of the live, there were several notable speakers that were there. And for those of you who just joined, welcome, welcome. Glad you're here today. And there's a lot of people that I'm not mentioning everyone's name, so I apologize about that. But Kevin O'Leary was present, Jordan Belfort was present, Gary Vaynerchuk was present, Renee Rodriguez was present, David Meltzer was present, Andrew Cordell, and another individual named Eddie Coleman also was present at the event. And all of the speakers that were there, there's many other speakers. I can't go into everybody's name here because I don't remember everybody off the top of my head. But all the speakers came with a level of energy that was very, very elevated. Now, I'll share who I felt like had the most energy out of the group, but and that's not, it's probably not to be expected, but everybody came with energies. When you are talking to your teams, have you ever found yourself talking to them and you feel like they're just staring at you and they are at a point where they're just not listening to what you have to say? Has it ever happened to you? Because it surely has happened to me as a leader, for sure. And I say this because if you come in and bring energy, bring some excitement to the project you're working on, your team you're communicating with, they will feel that and they will feel like, yes, let's go ahead and do this. This is what the leader's talking about. So I want to say hello to Sam Karp. If I said it incorrectly, Sam, I'm sorry about that. Hope you're doing well today and welcome to the channel, Sam. Sam says you are good. Well, thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. I rushed here to be able to communicate with you all because today has been a very, 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 very long day for me, but I want to make sure that I'm here to support my audience any way that I can. As I mentioned, how can you bring energy to a conversation, a discussion as a leader so that you are the person that stands out from everybody else? Let's talk about it. Ways that you can bring energy first really starts with here in your mind. And you may be thinking, well, if I'm speaking to my team, I'm communicating with them. What do you mean it comes from here? Everything that you are trying to say or you want to articulate to your teams has to formulate in your mind first specifically. And you have to be at a place where, regardless of the topic that you are discussing with your teams, that you feel excited about it. Now, there's times, and I know leaders, you've been through this, I've been through this, where there's topics that you have to talk about with your teams that are very, very boring, that may not be as exciting as we want them to be. That is okay. Still bring some form of excitement to it. Whether you say a very complimentary statement on how your team has been doing in a specific KPI or metric, or maybe you just decide that you want to just elevate your voice and just show your team how incredibly excited you are about whatever it is that you want to talk about, then these are ways you can bring energy into a conversation. This is how leaders stand out. And as I mentioned, for those of you joining, welcome, welcome. I'm sharing with you the one big communication lesson that I learned from the Aspire Tour event today here in Fort Lauderdale. And that is, you need to bring energy to your events. You need to bring energy when you are communicating with your teams as a leader. If you're not able to bring energy, it makes it very, very difficult for them to feel very motivated to do whatever it is that you want them to support you with as a leader. Now, there's many other communication lessons that I could share with you at the event, but the most important aspect of this event that I want to share with you is bring energy. All of the speakers brought energy to the event today. They're really great to hear. I know you probably hear a lot of them online and listen to them speak. And to be quite candid with you, the way that they communicate online, specifically the people that I mentioned, are the way that they communicate in person. Have you ever been in a situation where you've heard someone online, you've seen them online, and you've met them in person or heard them speak in person, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, they sound much better online than they do in person? Have you ever experienced that? Because it is very common to have this occur when you are speaking in front of a group of people. If you are a good speaker or a good communicator, you are able to be very consistent. And this is something I talk about a lot on my channel here, especially as you're developing your executive presence. You want to be very consistent. And if you're very good at communicating and speaking, you know you have to be that consistent person, whether someone sees you online or they actually see you in person. Now, sometimes what happens when you are in the creator space, you're in the influencer space, is that on video, we may portray ourselves as a different person, but in real life, when you communicate with us, we may be totally different. I will say the speakers that were there today, they are true to who they are when they are communicating with you online. Kevin O'Leary is the same Kevin as it is when he's online. Gary Vaynerchuk is the same. Jordan Belfort is definitely the same. Renee Rodriguez is the same. The other founders, Andrew Cordell and Eddie Caldwell, I believe his last name, they are all the same in terms of how they communicate. And your teams need to know that. They need to understand that you are going to be that same person when you're communicating to them. Therefore, when you're at the point where you are trying to announce something really big, talk to them about a hard conversation or something along those lines, then this is something that will actually come up. They will feel your energy. And it's so important. As I mentioned at this event, there's a lot of communication strategies I can share with you as a public speaker and listening to people speak. But the one big thing I took away that you want to use as a leader when you're communicating with your teams from this very big event is to make sure you are bringing your energy. So something came up on the chat. Olive Juice 2024. Hello, Olive Juice. How are you doing today? So good to see you. I appreciate you being here and hope everything is going well for you this week, friend. So I mentioned energy is very, very important. If you want your audience, you want your team to feel you, you have to bring energy and you have to be pretty consistent with it. When you're talking to your teams and you're maybe speaking to people at length for a long amount of time or an extended amount of time, what can happen is you get tired. Do you know, has it happened to you before when you've had to do a big, long presentation and you as a presenter feel like, oh my gosh, I can't wait until this ends? It happens. You can get so tired. And your audience will feel that tiredness too. There was one presentation today, I will say that was, I don't even know the person's name, because what happened is Gary Vaynerchuk, I believe he must have been late to the event because they had to fill in with a couple other things that were going on or topics or presenters and etc. But there's one person you can tell they were starting to get a bit tired. And what I want to encourage you to do is think about, in addition to that energy you have to bring when you're talking to your teams, you have to build a little bit of stamina also in terms of how you speak. And the only way you do that is by speaking as much as you can. So Olive Juice 2024 says exhausted. Yes, sometimes when you're doing those long presentations, you can feel so incredibly exhausted and very, very tired. Building up your stamina is important. Another thing to keep in mind, and this is a bit off topic from the big lesson I mentioned to you, but it's somewhat tied to it, is whenever you know you have to communicate with your teams and speak with them and etc., it is something that you want to keep in mind. Try to get as much rest as you can. One of the things that Kevin O'Leary talked about today, which was very surprising, by the way, that he mentioned that can help you be able to really accelerate your productivity, was he talked about food. There's a certain amount of protein you want to eat a day. He said 120 grams of protein is what you need to eat a day. That's what he said today. And he also talked about sleep. So he mentioned as adults, we need to make sure we're at least getting 7 hours of sleep. This can vary from individual to individual. Even though I'm a doctor, I'm not giving you medical advice, but I will say specifically, this is something that can vary from individual to individual. In order for you to bring that energy that your audience and your team need to feel, you absolutely want to have yourself in a situation where you are rested. It's hard to push through energy and give it to your audience if you're exhausted. You can do this, but you have to be a very, very, very trained public speaker to do that. And if this is something where you find yourself in situations where you're feeling a bit tired and you have to communicate with a lot of people, then contact me for a strategy session in the description below if you're a woman in leadership, and I will help you be able to learn how to master this, because this is something that you just have to build up. I'm exhausted. I'm tired myself right now, but I was so incredibly excited to come back and speak with you all and share with you what I learned from the event. So much, I haven't even taken this off, as I mentioned earlier. I just kept this on because I just came straight in, got my kids situated, and came right here to go talk to you all. So Olive Juice 2024 says, I've been going to bed early. I love Kevin O'Leary. Yeah, protein intake. Yes, so Olive Juice, you would have enjoyed his presentation today that he had. Kevin, when he comes out, and all of the speakers came out this way. It was a little bit different than what I have seen at other conferences and other events. And this is a bit off topic, but for those of you who have never attended the Aspire Tour event or have never seen these actual individuals in person, this will be good insight for you to have. All of the speakers, when they came out, and Kevin is one of them, they came out ready, and they came out strictly to talk about business and to help you be successful. Most of the time when you go to different public speaking events and etc., They are those type of events where people are like, how's everybody doing? What's going on? Getting the crowd riled up initially. That was not a requirement for the speeches and presentations today. These individuals were so incredibly passionate about helping and supporting business owners to really go to that next level in their careers. They said, forget the fluff. We're going to go straight into how we can help you. And Kevin O'Leary was like that. Now, Kevin, and I know all of you says, I love Kevin. Kevin, I'm a fan of Kevin. Kevin has a lot of great insight. I'm a fan of a lot of the people they had today. But I will say specifically in Kevin's case, he still has his very sarcastic humor, which is just funny to watch. He will tell it just like it is. The way that he is the way that he is. And as I mentioned earlier, for those of you who may have missed this, what happens sometimes, and I have seen this happen many times, you'll see people that are online, these big name individuals or people that have a large following or etc. You'll see them communicate with you online, and when you meet them in person, they're completely different. And you feel like the person you met online is really the best version of themselves, but when they are in front of people, that version of themselves is not present. Why is that? People change when they are speaking in front of people. Sometimes. And that is what happens a lot of times when you have that discrepancy, when you see one person communicate one way online and you see them in person, they're completely different. As I mentioned, the individuals that I saw today, Kevin O'Leary, Jordan Belfort, Gary Vaynerchuk, Renee Rodriguez, and many other people that they had, they were very true to how they communicate online, especially when they are communicating in person with a large group of people. There were several thousand of people that were there today. There were so many people that they had to add more room in the back that I did not know. And there was just a lot of people at the event. But that is something to keep in mind. So as I mentioned, as a point of just as a summary, when you're going to these events, and if you have any questions specifically about any of the events or the speakers that were there, let me know. I took a couple pictures. I will share that on my YouTube channel and on my social media as well. I will most likely end up doing that tomorrow, more than likely, because tonight is just, I've been there all day today. But the summary I want you all to take away as leaders as it relates to that one big communication strategy that you can do as a leader to help engage your teams when you are talking to them is to bring energy. Your teams need to feel you. They really need to feel you, feel your energy, feel your excitement about a project to feel like, okay, this is something I want to do. And my bonus that I want to add for you is consistency. Being very consistent in terms of how you communicate with your teams in your one-on-one settings privately, or perhaps in your group settings when you're in public, is very, very important for your teams to be able to trust you to go to that next level in your career. Now, if you have any specific questions, feel free to let me know. I will provide just a very brief summary of the event as a whole. It's a very good event. And if you are anyone that is at a point in your career where you're trying to elevate yourself, not only from a business standpoint as an entrepreneur, but maybe even financially, it's a really great event. I enjoyed myself there today. I met a lot of really wonderful people. I met people from all scopes of their business career. Some people didn't have a business set up yet. They didn't know what they wanted to do just yet. They have a lot of ideas that they're trying to figure out, and they were going to the event to learn more insight. There was a lot of wealth building information given at that particular event. And some of the things I would say that I took away from the event that might be helpful for my audience to think about, because I really want you all to be successful, not only as communicating at a higher level than your peers, whether you're a woman in leadership in my target audience that I support, or you happen to be a man in leadership watching this, or you just are not a leader just yet and you're just learning, is to really work on your finances. There's a certain amount of knowledge that is not, I would say, readily available to all of us. And there's a lot of statements and words that we have been taught over the years that prevent us from moving forward as business owners, as leaders, and financially to become wealthy. And that was a very big focus of the meeting today, was to not only build yourself, but really to build yourself financially. And I would say one of the big takeaways that I took from the event was that your finances are critically important. If you're trying to build generational wealth for your children, there are a lot more things that you want to think about as it relates to that. And there were 4 tax-free retirement accounts that were mentioned today. I'm going to share those with you all, that I invested time in my funds to learn, so that you all will learn them too. But there was a couple accounts that I thought were very helpful. And for some of you who may know them or may not, this is just good information for you to know. I want to help you all be successful. There were 4 tax-free retirement accounts that were discussed today specifically that I want to bring to the audience. One of the tax-free retirement accounts are your Roth IRAs, if you don't know about that. The second one was a solo account. The third was an HSA account. And the fourth was a CESA account. And I'll spell that as CESA. I have not heard of that one. And those are 4 tax-free retirement accounts that were discussed today that you may want to look into. I'm not a financial advisor by any means whatsoever, but I am doing a bit more as it relates to investing and looking into some of those accounts. I have a couple of those accounts, but it was discussed today that thinking about these 4 tax-free accounts is something that you want to try to start working on, especially if you're trying to build wealth for yourself and for perhaps your family or your children and for other future generations. Now, there's a lot more information that was discussed. I can't go into all of it because, as I mentioned, I'm not a certified financial planner by any means, but maybe keep those 4 tax-free retirement accounts in your mind. If you have a couple of those set up, let me know. One of the things that actually really was a big takeaway for me that I personally did not think of and have not heard of, and so I'm assuming that is true because it was mentioned by one of the speakers there. I'm assuming that's true. But one of the things that I didn't know about, and I have to look into, and if you have some insight on this in the video, let me know in the comments below, that you can actually have your HSA, okay? Your HSA, most of us know that as a health savings account here in the United States. A health savings account is one that people usually have, and they put away funds for that account. Sometimes your employer will contribute to it. Sometimes your employer does not contribute to it. Just depends. But people usually have their health savings account as a amount of money that is tax-free that is there in case there's some type of medical expense that occurs. However, what I learned today, which I want to look into, is that you can actually have your health savings account be the purchaser of a multifamily real estate property. That I did not know. So that's something I'm actually going to look into to learn more about. And these are all strategies that they talk about as it relates to building wealth and being able to have assets that will help you offset costs as you are a business owner. And even if you're not a business owner, let's say you don't have a business at all, it's still good to have some type of insight and some type of investment into those 4 tax-free accounts that I mentioned just a moment ago. It is something that I would highly recommend for you all to look into. As I mentioned earlier, of course, I want you all to communicate at a higher level than your peers. Of course, I want you to be that leader that communicates and speaks and stands out from everybody else. Of course, I want you all to make as much money as you possibly can. And of course, I want you all to make the biggest impact on the world that you can by how you are communicating and how you are presenting yourself as a leader. However, I want you all to be that group of people that knows a lot more information than everybody else. And majority of people, as Kevin O'Leary mentioned today, 75% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And I'm sure many of you and many individuals I know that are in that category of 75% of Americans. And if you're in different countries, I don't know what the statistics are specifically, but I know what Kevin said today, and I will take what Kevin said to be accurate in this case. However, I don't want you all to necessarily be in that category of those 75% of Americans that are living paycheck to paycheck. And a way to think about that is to consider maybe looking into some of those four retirement or four tax-free accounts that I mentioned to you a few moments ago. And for those of you who have just joined, welcome. Glad you're here today. I'm just sharing with you all the big takeaways that I gained from the Aspire Tour event today in Fort Lauderdale. The big communication strategy that you can use as a leader is to make sure you're bringing energy to all conversations you're having as a leader. And my bonus for you is to make sure you're very consistent in your message. Sometimes when you're speaking as a leader and you're speaking for an extended amount of time, you can become very, very tired. But the way for you to forget that, I would say, and not be as tired is to make sure you build up your stamina in terms of speaking. There are certain topics that you can speak about and talk about, and make sure when you are communicating with your teams, specifically as it relates to some of those topics, and you have to bring that energy, make sure it's something that you can talk about for a bit of time so that you are excited about it and your team feels that energy. What I was going into, for those of you who just joined, was the 4 tax-free accounts that I learned about when I was at the event today. And those are your Roth IRAs, your solo accounts, your CESA, C-E-S-A, and then also your HSAs. And as I mentioned, the big, I would say, enlightenment that I learned today is that your HSA can potentially be used as the purchaser of property. Now, how that works, I don't know. I will comfortably tell you what I know and what I'm not aware of. But what I do know is that it was discussed today by individuals who have billions and have made billions of dollars in their businesses. So there's probably something to think about as it relates to that specifically. So I want to know from you, what are some communication questions that you have? What are some challenges that you're facing right now? What are the really hard situations you're dealing with? I want to make sure this year that you are being very supported and that you are in a good place. If you are a woman in leadership and you are in my direct target audience that I provide executive coaching and consultation services to, this is your year to make more income. This is your year to make a bigger impact. And this is your year to start living life the way that you want to live it. And if you need some support in that, if you need to have some time to develop a strategy, getting everything together. I know a lot of times as leaders, we have a lot of things in our mind and you just need to take some time to really dive into it. Contact me for a strategy session. Let's talk about it. If you are a woman in leadership and you are at a point in your journey where you know that you need to communicate at a higher level and you are maybe in roles that are a lot more visible. Maybe you're in a public facing type of role and you haven't been in that role before, or maybe you've been in that role and you know that you're losing your influence and you're trying to figure out, well, what is it that I'm doing? Is it something that I'm not communicating properly? You absolutely want to reach out to me for an executive communication analysis. This will change your life. This is an opportunity for you to learn a lot more about how you specifically are communicating as a leader. It is one of the services that I provide, and I've received so much feedback from my clients that have went through it that have told me it changed their life. They have been able to get multiple six-figure salaries going through this process because they're able to fine-tune and work on their strengths as they are communicating as leaders, but then also be able to advance and elevate how they are communicating as leaders as well. So if you are a woman in leadership, reach out to me for a strategy session. Let's talk about where you are. I'll share with you how I feel like I can support you on your journey. If you are a man in leadership or an individual that is not at the leadership level just yet, you will learn a lot of information from my channel. There's a ton of information I have here as it relates to how to elevate yourself as you communicate that is applicable whether you are a woman in leadership, a man in leadership, or you're trying to learn more about the process. If you're trying to really work on yourself this year, one of the best ways for you to work on yourself is to learn as much as you can about how you communicate. I will tell you that every single speaker that was at Aspire Tour today talked about how to communicate. Jordan Belfort was Jordan Belfort, and he is always very, very entertaining to watch. especially as a speaker. The way he communicates is the way he communicates. But it all comes down to communication. He talks about his straight line sales process. It all comes down to communication. Even if you're not in business, it all comes down to communication, which is why hopefully you are subscribed to the channel, because I'm here to really support you to communicate at a higher level than your peers. I appreciate you all so much, and I'm here really to help you. So if you have any topics, do not be shy. Please do not be shy. If you feel like you're in a situation, you're not quite sure how to navigate it, how to do it, what should you say, how should you say it, maybe you want to talk about a strategy as it relates to it, let me know in the comments below. Feel free to learn from my over 20 years of experience as a C-suite executive, a director, a manager, a public speaker, an executive coach. I've been on the news. I've worked with congressional leaders on the national level and locally here in Florida. Learn from me. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'm here really to help you any way that I can. I know a lot of times as leaders, we're in situations where we just don't know what to say or how to say it. I will help you figure out a way to say what it is you need to say, especially if you are under pressure and you're in a high stakes situation or you're having a really hard conversation. I appreciate you all so much. I am back to my normal live schedule as of today, except a couple weeks from now, there's a few things going on. I will let you all know that in advance. But let me know, what did you learn? What are some questions that you had as it relates to the topics that I shared with you today? Put them in the comments below, and I will do a video just for you to provide you with some insight to help you on your journey. I appreciate your support as always. Feel free to like this video and share it with a friend, a colleague of yours that you know is trying to elevate how they communicate as a leader. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now.